Hey guys, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program with Nitro, and today I have my Kenworth refueling truck that I'm ready to send out to Laythe. So this is going to be just a quick little test run so I can show you guys what I've built here and the mission it'll be going on. So this is my truck that I have named the Kenworth, and it's a ground refueling truck. Kenworth off of the name for one of the big semi-trucks that you usually see around. There's also Peterbilt, but I chose Kenworth. So this thing does operate on the ground and it refuels by using the claw up here, and I also include a couple of the new RCS systems that use the liquid fuel oxidizer mix rather than the regular oxidizer mix. So this thing lands horizontally with these vertical takeoff engines, as well as using parachutes to slow its descent. Now there is a slight risk to damaging the wheels when it actually hits the ground, and you have to try and fire these engines at the last possible second in order to slow down enough. Now these aerospike engines don't have a whole lot of fuel that they can use out of these tiny fuel tanks that I have on the side of here, so that's why you have to really wait till you actually use them, till you're just like probably like less than 100 to I don't know, like around 50 to 25 meters or something like that above the ground till you activate these engines. Otherwise you're not going to have enough fuel in the engines to maintain thrust. And you do have to make sure it lands on all four tires the best you can, otherwise you might have a set of tires that'll break. Now I do still have one operational rover on Laythe that I have a Kerbal that I could send out and repair the tires and then send this thing over to the station, but hopefully I won't have to do that. So the other thing with this is the lifting stage and everything to get this thing up into orbit. Now the reason that there's these large struts on here is actually to keep this thing from wobbling, because there's a lot of wobble if you have something large like this that has no support on it. And the strut structure here offers a perfect amount of support, and also when you jettison it, this thing just slides off and it's nice and pretty. So I'm going to have a link to this in the description if you guys want to download it and check it out and try ground refueling for yourselves. I have the action groups listed here. So number 2, you toggle landing engines, and number 3 toggles the ladders. And the reason for that is you can get a Kerbal up on top of here and repair all the parachutes if you want to. And I just included them. I thought it was a cool idea. You could have a Kerbal up there. I didn't have the seat though, so that's one thing I did need to include, actually, is you can have a Kerbal walk around up on top of this thing, and if you wanted to, you could have him sit in that little seat right there. I don't think I want to put one up on top of the dish, but move the seat back a little bit. Put it right there, because when this dish opens up, it's gonna kind of get in the way. But the ladders are right here on the side, so you could have a Kerbal climb up the ladders and get up on top of this thing and walk around on it if you want to. No real good spot for the seat, but I'll just stick one on there for the heck of it. So we'll save that. So that'll be the one that'll be in the description. But I'm going to do a quick little test flight with this thing, send it up into orbit, and then try landing it in the desert and show you guys how it operates. And I also have the transfer stage for this truck ready to go. And the transfer stage is going to have 2 of these things hooked together on either side of it, and it's going to send both of them all the way out to Laythe. Now you do have to refuel the transfer stage though. Whoa. When you launch it up into orbit. Started a long ways away from the launch pad there. Okay. So we've got this thing ready to adjust the camera up. Alright. So launching in 3, 2, 1. Alright, there we go. A nice orbit. And so now the next thing to do is make sure that it's not moving at all, which it looks nice and stable. And go ahead and do the main separation. There we go. As you can see, it just slides nicely out of the bracing unit there. Flew nice and straight, didn't have any wobble or any major problems. And just wanted to check and see how much of that dish. Yeah, that's probably why I didn't put the seat on there, because it it would be kind of lame for the Kerbal to be under that dish, but whatever. Like an umbrella. So let's see here. Number 3, as you can see, changes the ladders to being deployed and retracted on both sides of the truck. So I'll go ahead and take those back in. Now, all these tanks on this entire thing are locked at this point because I didn't want to accidentally use up any of the fuel that I'll be needing for refueling, including the back one there, but this back one's actually going to be our deorbital engine, so I do need to unlock this one. Like that, and then I'll also unlock this forward one here, because this one, the purpose of the forward one here is to power all of the liquid fuel oxidizer RCS ports that I have on the front and on the back. But we don't need those right now to do any sort of maneuvers or anything, so our target is going to be probably right here in the middle of this desert. So go ahead and time warp until we're over there. Or at least close enough to do the deorbital burn here. Okay, so let's do the deorbital burn right about here. Should be good. This engine isn't very powerful, so let's see how well we do. So if I get it somewhere around this mountain region here, then we should slow down enough to land somewhere in this area. Be my guess. Alright, so that's all the fuel out of there now. Since this is a test run, I'm going to transfer fuel from the center tank into this, but when we get out to Laythe, that won't be necessary because, whoops, I'm going to have a very different orbit than what I do here around Kerbal. It's going to be a very, very elliptical orbit, so I won't need to use as much fuel to get the deorbit burn when I take it down to Laythe. So, but for the purposes of the test, we'll go ahead and give a little bit more fuel in here because I don't think we're gonna have enough to get it right where I want it. Alright, that should be good enough. I don't think we're gonna land in that little pond down there. So let's transfer all this leftover fuel back in and leave it like that. So let's see, I need to get reoriented here. And the reason there's so much RCS and whatnot on this thing is this is a total ground refueler, so no matter what you have, if it's like a little plane on the surface, or as my purpose of this is refueling a space station, you're going to be able to refuel all the RCS and all the fuel on it, hopefully, with a couple of these things being sent out there. I might need to send another one after this one just to have on station on the ground, but 2 should be pretty good to refuel most of the fuel that I need for the station. And I'm going to try seeing if it'll actually take off and fly. I don't know if it will re-achieve orbit from Laythe. It might with the help of the solid rocket boosters, but I kind of doubt it just because it is so heavy. It will fly on Kerbal with the liquid fuel engines, but its chances of achieving orbit are slim, I will admit. Let's go ahead and time warp a little bit here. As we come in over the desert, don't want to land on any of the mountains because that's very uneven terrain. Take it out of time warp here, actually. Make sure it doesn't flip over, because if it flips over now, that would be bad. But that's why I have the RCS. The liquid fuel oxidizer RCS engines are really quite powerful, and they're very good for stabilizing like that right there. You can see, just so this thing doesn't flip over while it's going through re-entry. This actually looks good. I don't know about this little patch here, but hopefully we'll land on some decent terrain. If I land before that, actually that would be ideal. Go ahead and deploy the parachutes. I don't want to land on this. I think we should come right down before it. I do want to try and keep the wheels nice and straight. So number 2 on the hotkeys takes those engines offline after you activate them here, and I'm going to hit 2 again as we near the surface, and the engines are going to fire at full power for about maybe 2 to 3 seconds of burn time, and that should slow us down enough to get a safe landing. Terrain actually looks pretty good. Hopefully I won't break any of the wheels. There we go. Got to reorient here a little bit. So actually looks pretty good. We might wind up landing on the front wheels a bit. We'll see. So we're falling at just about 10 meters per second or so. We want to land less than 5 meters per second would be ideal. If you land any harder than that, you risk breaking the tires, because this thing does weigh quite a bit. Alright, here we go. Getting close. Getting close. Oh, stop. Brakes. Brakes. Ugh. There we go. Oh, man. Alright, so we did land on a hill, unfortunately, but as you can see, you have to wait to the last second and then fire the engines, and you'll be able to land just fine. We do actually have a lot of fuel left in that, actually. I'm surprised. Usually I burn up more fuel than that when I land, but there you have it. You gotta really be patient and wait till you're getting down real close to the ground, fire the engines at full power, and you'll land just fine. So I'm gonna take the brakes off here. Ooh, okay, so let's go ahead and control from there. So the weird thing about this is the controls are actually inverted when you control from here on this top little command module, and that's why I had it up there, so that way your nav ball would reorient. So I think I can invert steering. I don't know, because I'm pressing the opposite of turn right now, and I don't want to be going. No. Please go back down. There we go. Yeah, we're actually on way too steep of a hill, but I guess the RCS could help. But I'm not gonna risk going down that hill. That hill's too steep, I think. We'd have to take this very, very slowly, and I'm not an expert with the rover controls, actually. I'm not really sure, because I can hold back right now, and it does slow down, but once we get going, there's just no stopping it. Go a little carefully here. It's going too fast. Brakes. Whoop, there we go. And that RCS again does come in handy. So, and actually, after I land this thing on a planet, we no longer need this engine here, really. Now, if it does still have fuel in it, you can use it to try and get up steeper hills or inclines and whatnot on whatever planet you're on, but once it's done, I included a little separator here. So you can just pop that off, and then you don't need it anymore. And we can go away from the little decoupler there. Alright, so actually I wanted to check here and see if invert steering actually works. Hey, it does. Alright, that's good news. At the very least, I can steer correctly now. So now if I press left, it turns left, and I press right, it turns right. Which is what it should have done all along. So let's hit the brakes. Oop. And now I don't have the RCS control up there anymore. But that's okay. But there you go. This is my Kenworth ground refueling truck that I'll be sending out to Laythe, and then latching on to the station with the claw there, and then we can transfer all the fuel from one of these out into the station itself, and it even comes with lights for nighttime drops. Although I don't have any lights on the underside of it, but I don't really think I need those, because I do intend on landing this thing during the day on Laythe, so that's the reason for that. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the Kenworth there. The next thing is the transfer stage, and with the transfer stage, when you dock this thing, you will have to dock it onto both docking ports that you have here at the exact same time, and that can be a little tricky sometimes, because usually it'll dock onto like one port and it won't dock onto the other one. And since this thing is kind of nimble in space, actually, once you have the RCS going, it might not dock properly, and you have to undock it and then redock it again, so it can be kind of a pain, but after a couple of tries it usually works. So I have that saved here as the Kenworth transfer, so we'll load that. Okay, so this is a lift stage and transfer stage all in one for the Kenworth transfer. Now, it does require refueling after you get it up into space, but it's very simple. It's just 4 of these tanks that asparagus into the central tank here, and the central tank has just one engine that it uses to get you from Kerbal all the way out to Laythe. But the reason you refuel it is I wanted to keep these large quad engines here on the bottom, because these will actually get you out of Kerbal orbit and out to Laythe. And then these draw fuel from the top tanks here through this little transfer system, and after you get this thing up into orbit, you no longer need this transfer system, so it's rigged up here on the stages, so that way you just eject these once you get up into orbit. And then after you refuel it, these bottom engines here will be refueled. You fire all those, jettison, and then you run off of this one central tank. And then all the rest of the fuel up here in this orange tank and also in the cone is emergency fuel if you wind up being less efficient than you needed to, if you need to make course corrections or inclination changes being probably one of the most major things that everyone will have to do. You'll have extra fuel to do those. And so this is pretty much it, and you'll have to dock it onto both these docking ports here, and the structural fuselage actually provides a perfect amount of spacing for when you dock these. The wheels will be almost touching here in the center, but they won't actually be touching, but it'll help even out the spacing in between the two docked Kenworths. So that's how that works. I'll do a quick launch here just so you guys can see how this thing runs, and kind of a little bit more about what I'm talking about with fuel transfer. And then in the next video, I'll have this thing rigged up, ready to go, and already out to Laythe, and then I'll probably be doing the deorbit of the Kenworths down to my station and refueling my station, hopefully in my next Kerbal video. So here we go, launching in 3, 2, 1. And there we go. So we got up to a 100,000 meter orbit around Kerbal, and now activate the central engine here. So this is the main one that'll take you all the way up to Laythe after you use these 4 engines here once they've been refueled to eject yourself from the Kerbal orbit. And these will get you a decent way there. But now that we're up there, you can see how the transfer system worked. Now it's all asparagus together, so we did lose these 2 engines first, and we're still running on these 2 here. But we just transferred fuel out from this tank down to this tank and into this tank. Since we have separators on the stacks here, we can't do it just naturally. And now we don't need those anymore, so you just, after you activate the central engine here, just hit eject, and you eject all of the spent tanks. Then you just shut down this engine here, and then you run pretty much exclusively on these engines until you get yourself out of Kerbal until they're expended. And then these 4 large tanks here all asparagus into the central one, which runs off of just 1 engine. And that'll take you all the way there in a pretty good amount of time, so you don't have to waste time with nuclear engine. And yeah, it's a fair-sized craft, but it's good transfer stage. I like it. It gets the job done. You don't need to use nuclear engines for something like this, so because this is a one-way trip, we're not planning on coming back, so I don't really see the need for going for extra efficiency. And this thing gets refueled pretty easily with one of my refuelers that I use, so overall I like it. So after you get this thing up here, the best way to go about the docking process is just get this thing pointed up vertically, and then you dock the Kenworth onto both of the docking ports at the same time. Hopefully it'll work for you guys. I have a docking port up here for refueling, for if you send a refueling up here to refuel this thing. So you just orient this all the way up to normal, and then it'll be really easy to dock everything to it. There we go. Just turn the RCS off there. So I'll have one of these things ready to go, and I'll strap my Kenworths to it and ship it out there to Laythe, and then we'll land it on the surface and refuel the good old space station, and I'll see if it'll fly. If it gets out of Laythe's atmosphere, I'll be very impressed, but we'll see. I do plan on keeping it on the surface of Laythe though for the time being, and even after I do the little test flight, because I'll just make a different save for that and just show it flying. So that's the plans for the next videos, guys. Do hope you enjoyed this demonstration. I'm gonna have the links for both these crafts as well as all of my other crafts I've done over the time period I've been playing Kerbal in the description box on my Google Drive for all the crafts, so you can download and check them out yourself. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and until next time, guys, take care.